Deep in the heart of a quiet village stood an ancient manor, its walls echoing with stories of the past. Julia, a vibrant young woman with a love for history, had recently moved into the manor with her grandmother. The old house, with its creaking floors and whispering winds, fascinated her. One evening, Julia received an unexpected call from her close friend, Alice. "Get ready. We need to visit a place immediately," Alice said urgently. "Why? What happened?" Julia asked, confused. "I'll explain later, just be ready," Alice insisted. Within minutes, Julia found herself driving through the foggy village roads, Alice beside her, a look of concern on her face. They soon arrived at an old, dilapidated cottage on the outskirts of the village. An elderly woman opened the door and welcomed them in, her eyes filled with worry. "What's going on?" Julia asked as they sat down in the dimly lit living room. The woman explained that her granddaughter, Emily, had been experiencing strange occurrences ever since she returned from college. Emily, once full of life, had become a shadow of her former self. Dark circles marred her eyes, and she barely spoke anymore. "She says someone or something visits her at night, holding her down in her bed, making it impossible to move or scream," the old woman whispered. "We've tried everything, even took her to the city for treatment, but nothing helps." Julia and Alice exchanged glances, their skepticism fading as the woman continued. That night they decided to stay in Emily's room to see if they could witness the strange events. As the clock struck midnight, an eerie silence fell over the manor. Suddenly, Julia felt a cold breeze sweep through the room. She opened her eyes to see Emily standing at the foot of the bed, her body rigid, her eyes wide with terror. Julia tried to move but found herself paralyzed, as if an invisible force was holding her down. Alice, too, struggled to move, her heart pounding in fear. Emily let out a silent scream, her face twisted in horror as she was lifted off the ground by an unseen entity. The room grew colder, and shadows danced on the walls as if mocking them. With a sudden burst of strength, Julia managed to break free from the force holding her down. She grabbed Alice's hand and rushed to Emily, pulling her back to the bed. As soon as they touched her, the room returned to its normal state, the shadows receding into the corners. Shaken and terrified, the three of them left the manor that night, vowing never to return. As they drove away, Julia couldn't help but glance back at the old house, now silent and still under the moonlit sky. "Was it real?" Alice asked, her voice trembling. Julia didn't answer, her thoughts racing. She had read about spirits and hauntings before, but experiencing it firsthand was something else entirely. And so, the story of the haunted manor became another whispered tale in the village, a place where the past refused to let go, where the shadows still lingered, waiting for their next visitor.